It started with a sound no one ever really notices until it happens when you're alone. The soft chime of a doorbell, cutting through the quiet like a whisper that shouldn't be there. At first, it was easy to explain away. Maybe a delivery driver, a prank, maybe someone just pressed the wrong button. But then the homeowner noticed something strange. The timestamp on the notification showed 3:17 a.m. There were no footsteps, no package, no car headlights passing by, just the ring, and then nothing. When he opened the app to check the footage, the screen glitched for half a second. The front porch appeared, dimly lit by the motion sensor light. Empty. But as the pixels stabilized, a figure stood at the edge of the frame. Motionless, no visible face. Just a faint outline of someone standing too still to be normal, staring directly into the lens as if they knew it was recording. He froze, watched, rewound. The same thing, 3 seconds of static, then that figure appearing closer each time the video replayed. He swore he could hear something faint through the speaker feed, something like breathing. Not heavy, not rushed, slow, deliberate, like whoever it was knew they were being listened to. The light flickered once, then twice, before the screen went black again. He sat there, phone in hand, replaying the clip until morning. When daylight came, he walked out to the front step, half expecting to see footprints, maybe some sign that it was all just a dream. But there was nothing. No mud, no tracks, no evidence of anyone having been there at all. Except one thing, the faintest smudge on the doorbell camera lens, like a fingerprint pressed too close to glass. That's when it clicked. The angle of the print meant whoever touched it wasn't standing on the steps. They were crouched down, watching, waiting. He cleaned the lens, tried to shake off the unease, and told himself it was just someone messing around. But the next night, it happened again. Same time, same ring. This time, the footage didn't just show the figure, it showed movement. A slow tilt of the head, the glint of a smile just visible beneath the porch light, and something that sounded like a whisper, muffled, but close enough that the mic picked it up. He never got a clear word out of it, just a pattern, almost like humming. The sound of someone familiar pretending to be gentle. And then, as the figure leaned closer to the lens, the feed cut to static. Most people think of their doorbell cameras as a layer of safety, something that lets them see the outside world without opening the door. But sometimes, they forget one thing. When you stare too long into the dark through a lens, something out there might be staring right back, and sometimes it's already closer than you think. The night was quiet in the kind of way that makes every sound feel louder than it should. The streetlights hummed faintly, casting a weak orange glow over the damp pavement. You could almost hear the static in the air, that thin electric silence right before something happens. The camera on the front porch clicked on, its red light blinking once as the motion sensor caught something moving just beyond the frame. The porch itself was ordinary, a worn welcome mat, a hanging plant swaying slightly in the breeze, the soft rattle of a loose gutter in the wind. But when you watch the footage closely, it doesn't feel ordinary. There's something heavy about it, something in the way the shadows seem to hold their shape a little too long. It's not what you see that gets under your skin, it's what you can't. Every few seconds a car passes somewhere in the distance, headlights sweeping across the neighboring houses. The light never quite reaches this porch. It stops short, like even the night itself doesn't want to look too closely at what's standing there. The air feels thick, humid, as if the darkness itself has weight. You can almost feel it pressing against the door, seeping in through the cracks. Inside, the house is asleep. The soft buzz of an air conditioner, the ticking of a kitchen clock, a family tucked in bed, unaware that someone's outside watching them through a silent lens. Then, the faintest movement. The hanging plant shifts again, but this time there's no breeze. The porch light flickers once, and in that brief stutter of illumination, you see something. Just for a second. A hand, pale, thin, and motionless, resting against the railing. The light steadies, the hand is gone. You might tell yourself it was a glitch, some camera lag or digital artifact, but the sound doesn't lie. There's a dull creak, the wood of the porch giving under a slow, deliberate step. It's faint, almost too faint to notice, but the camera's mic catches it, amplifies it, makes it real. Another step, then another, each one closer to the door, and then it stops. The motion sensor light turns on fully, spilling its weak glow over the porch, but nothing's there. Just the same empty mat, the same door, the same silence. Except this time there's something else. A faint reflection on the glass, the kind you only notice when the camera zooms in. It's not a trick of the light, it's a face. Just barely visible, right where you'd expect your own reflection to be if you were the one standing there, watching from the other side of the door, and even though you know it's impossible, it feels like that reflection isn't looking at the camera. It's looking past it, straight into the house, straight at whoever's watching. The house belonged to a man named Eric. He'd moved there just 6 months before everything started, hoping to find some quiet after a rough divorce. It was one of those neighborhoods that looked safe just by design. Lined fences, trimmed hedges, porch lights always left on overnight. The kind of place where you'd expect the worst thing to happen is someone's dog knocking over the trash cans. Eric worked nights, mostly from home. He liked the quiet. The only real sound he ever heard after midnight was the hum of his computer and the occasional echo of a train from miles away. But one night, that quiet was broken by the doorbell. It wasn't the first time he'd heard it. A week before, the same thing had happened. 3 rings, spaced perfectly apart, around the same hour. He checked his camera feed then too, but it showed nothing. Just an empty porch and the faint distortion of static. He told himself it was a wiring issue, maybe the wind, maybe kids messing around, anything but what he really felt. After the second night, he stopped deleting the recordings. He started saving them one by one, and that's when he noticed something. In each clip, there was a faint shadow just at the edge of the light, shaped differently each time. Not quite human, not quite explainable. The kind of detail your mind wants to overlook because it makes too much sense to be real. A few weeks before he'd moved in, the house had been vacant for over a year. The previous owner, an older woman named Ruth, had passed away. Her daughter had listed the property quickly, wanting to move on. Neighbors said Ruth had lived alone for decades after her husband's disappearance. They'd never found him, just his truck abandoned on a side road, engine still warm. Ruth used to tell people he'd come home when he was ready, that he still knocked on the door sometimes. Eric didn't believe in that kind of thing. He was logical, grounded. But after that third night, something changed. The doorbell rang again, this time followed by a soft tapping on the glass. 3 knocks, perfectly spaced, just like the rings before. The recording showed movement, subtle but definite. A hand pressing against the window, pulling away slowly, leaving a smear on the glass. He sent the footage to the local police, but they didn't find much. No signs of forced entry, no footprints, no fingerprints that matched anyone in the system. They told him it was probably condensation, maybe glare, from a passing car. Eric didn't argue. But a week later, he packed up and left. The new owners moved in 2 months later. They replaced the doorbell camera with a newer model, higher resolution, better night vision. The first clip it ever recorded was a faint silhouette standing on the porch at 3:17 a.m. A figure too still to be alive, too familiar to be a stranger. The footage begins quietly, the way most unsettling things do. There's nothing dramatic at first, just the grainy glow of a porch light and the gentle hum of crickets in the distance. You can almost feel the stillness pressing in, heavy and patient. The camera lens occasionally adjusts focus, breathing softly in and out, like it's alive, like it's waiting. Then, a faint movement. It's not clear at first, just a blur in the lower corner of the frame. Could be a moth, could be wind catching the plant by the step. But something about it feels intentional, like it knows it's being watched. The motion sensor flickers, unsure whether to stay on or off, and in those few seconds of darkness, you start to hear it. Not footsteps, something softer, a scrape, like skin brushing wood. The light flashes on again, and everything looks the same. The mat, the steps, the rail, untouched. But there's a tension there, something in the air you can't name, the kind that makes you instinctively hold your breath because the world suddenly feels too quiet. Minutes pass. Nothing happens. The homeowner later said he almost turned off the feed right then, but he didn't. He kept watching, out of curiosity, out of that small, irrational fear that maybe, just maybe, something was about to happen. And then it did. From the far end of the porch, just beyond the edge of the camera's frame, a shape began to emerge. Slow, deliberate, almost cautious. Not approaching, more like drifting closer, inch by inch, until it took form, shoulders first. Then the suggestion of a head. But the features were lost in shadow, like the light refused to touch them. You can see the figure pause, perfectly still, as if listening. The sound cuts out completely, no crickets, no hum, just silence thick enough to feel. Then that same scraping again. Louder now, closer. It drags across the porch floor like someone's hand sliding slowly toward the door. The homeowner later described the moment as feeling unreal, like time had stretched thin. He said he felt a pressure in his chest, that primal instinct that tells you to move, to run, but he couldn't. The video held him. The sound, the movement, the stillness, it all formed a rhythm, a slow pulse that drew him in deeper. When the figure finally stepped forward, the motion light blinked once, twice, then failed entirely. The screen dimmed to grayscale. For nearly 15 seconds, nothing was visible, just static and the faint outline of something standing directly in front of the camera. Then, with one final pulse, the lens refocused. The porch was empty again, but there was a sound right before the clip ended, a whisper so faint you could miss it if you blinked. It came through the speaker, close enough to feel the breath behind it, just one word, impossible to make out, but familiar enough to send a chill through your spine because whoever it was said his name. The police never found anyone. They reviewed the footage again and again, frame by frame, but every time the figure appeared, the data would corrupt. The image would smear, stretch, and fade until all that was left was a vague outline and that same whisper beneath the static. A technician said it might have been a malfunction caused by the porch light. But if you listened closely, it wasn't electrical distortion, it was breathing. Eric never went back for his things. A neighbor eventually boxed up what he left behind: clothes, dishes, a few old notebooks. The camera stayed bolted to the wall, still connected to the old Wi-Fi that no one remembered the password for. Months passed. The house changed hands in and again. But that camera never stopped recording. The new owners complained about late-night notifications, motion alerts that went off at impossible hours, always around 3 in the morning. Every time they checked, the porch was empty. They turned the camera away from the door, eventually pointing it toward the street. But the alerts didn't stop. Now, the footage showed something stranger. It wasn't the porch anymore, it was reflections. A faint shape in the window glass, right where the door used to be in frame, like the camera was still trying to see what it used to watch. Neighbors said the house always felt colder than the rest of the block. Porch lights would flicker, dogs would bark for no reason, and sometimes, just before dawn, someone would hear a knock. 3 slow, measured taps on the glass. No one ever caught who it was. No one ever saw footprints. Just the sound, like someone politely asking to come inside. A delivery driver once claimed he saw something while dropping off, a package. A face in the reflection of the doorbell lens, smiling. But when he looked up, the porch was empty. He left the box on the step and never delivered there again. The house has been sold twice since then. The current residents don't talk about what happens, but the neighbors still get alerts from their own cameras. Motion detected across the street. And sometimes, in the still of the night, their recordings show a figure standing on that porch, half hidden by the shadows, head tilted slightly as if listening for something. It never moves toward the door, it just waits. Every clip ends the same way. The light flickers once, then static. And if you turn the volume up, just enough to catch the faintest sound beneath the interference, you can still hear it. That quiet ring echoing through the feed, as if someone is still pressing the doorbell, still waiting for someone to answer. But no one ever does. And maybe that's the only reason it's still there, still ringing, still watching. Because whatever it is, it doesn't want to be seen. It just wants to be let in.